So I just got done watching the second season finale of Sister Wives, and it was intense. It really didn't cover the Brown family in general, and I think that we've discussed that pretty comprehensively in the past. You can check out a link here. But tonight's episode did really cover Kody and what makes him tick, and that's what I want to talk about on this video. And I will specifically address people's questions about whether or not he's a narcissist. Okay, Kody. Here's my problem. I don't like Kody. I've never really liked Kody. I thought he was passable, though kind of cheesy, but passable like early on. But the last few years, he's turned into a nightmare, and I actively dislike him. I think he's a dismissive father. I hate the way he treats his wives. So it's hard for me to objectively look at him and try and understand what's driving all of this. But let's just try and take a step back and just go like, what do we know about Kody? He has constructed a life that revolves around him. He has 4 wives, I think 14 kids, that have historically all been dependent on him. He was the head of the table. He made the decisions. Everybody was submissive to him. And he was praised. He got attention. And he got the ego bump that comes from supporting a massive family. But there's a sacrifice there, right? In Kody's role, he doesn't get any downtime, no alone time for himself. He can't possibly have the depth of relationships with his kids that he wants. He's constantly embroiled in family drama. And I'm sure before the show we experienced financial distress, trying to take care of everybody. And then you have the relationship with his wives, which his wives continue to grow and evolve, but because Kody isn't around enough, they don't grow in an interconnected way. Like in most relationships, both parties can grow together. But in Kody's case, it's really hard for Kody to grow with each independent wife. So there's an exchange. And at the core of it, Kody makes that sacrifice because he needs the respect and the deference that comes with that role. But as we've all seen over the last 10 years, the family has grown and the dynamic has changed. The wives now are not so dependent on him. Quite the opposite. They make their own money. They're willing to make their own decisions. And as we saw tonight, Janelle's willing to tell him to fuck off and will walk away from him. Right? There's just a complete absence of that respect. And the kids too. I mean, I think they just have, I think just Christine has a daughter truly who's under the age of 16, but everybody else, I mean, Mary, Janelle, and Christine, all their kids are moving out of the house, and they are willing to push back on Kody and tell him to kiss it, and they'll challenge him. So the dynamic has shifted dramatically, except for the case of Robin. Robin has an incredibly deferential personality. I mean, she almost meets the criteria for dependent personality disorder. She is so aligned with Kody and will do whatever Kody wants, and her kids are young. So with Robin, he still has that dynamic. He still has that respect and the deference. But with the other families, he's lost that respect, he's lost that deference, and he doesn't know how to handle it. A healthy response would be to go to the family, go to the wives, go to the kids, and ask, what can I do differently? How do I evolve my relationships so that we fit, right? There would be compromising, there would be apologizing, there would be better communication. You'd have to go out of your way, Kody would have to go out of his way to change that dynamic. But that takes a lot of ego strength. That takes self-awareness. That takes a willingness to be wrong. And Kody just can't do that. Instead, when his kids or his wives don't follow his rules, he digs his heels in. Instead of saying, I'm wrong, maybe this rule was too harsh, he goes, no, this rule was right, and let me show you how right it was by making it even harder and punishing you if you don't follow it. Right? It's all a defense mechanism. Kody can't handle the criticism, so he pushes back hard. And what he's doing is he is killing all of his relationships, which is I don't think he wants to lose these relationships. He's losing them because he can't stomach the fact that he's made the mistake. It was shocking to me when Janelle was asked, or I think it was Kody was even asked, how's your relationship with Garrison and Gabe? And Kody goes, oh, we need therapy, we don't talk. And he does the exact same thing with his wives. The fact that he is withholding both emotional and physical intimacy from Christine, Janelle, and Mary is talk about a way to destroy your relationships. And he's good with it because they broke his rules. Now, that makes Kody an absolute nightmare to live with, but it does not make him a narcissist. Let me start by giving you some context. Let me tell you the story of the first time I worked with a true narcissist. When I was in training, I co-led a therapy group. It was an anxiety and depression group, but it was part of a clinic which only worked with people that had pervasive mental illness. So I was co-leading this group with a much more experienced licensed psychologist, and We're going around and talking. I don't know what the discussion was about, but all of a sudden, a woman to my left, who I think was 65, 70 years old, opens up her fanny pack and she pulls out this wrinkled piece of paper. And she says, these are the adoption papers that I got when I gave up my daughter. And she tells this story about how she wasn't able to take care of her daughter, whatever it was, 40 plus years ago. And she kept this receipt from when she dropped her daughter off with the adoption agency. And she is just bawling, and everybody's bawling. It was such, for a kid, that was just in school, I was like, oh my God, the intensity of the emotion was overwhelming to me. And while this woman is crying and talking about how she gave up her daughter and how she regrets it and how she doesn't know if she's ever going to be able to reconnect with her daughter because she doesn't know who, like, she's on and on about how, like, there's this loss, another woman jumps in, interrupts, and says, I can't believe you could have ever given up your daughter. I had 2 kids and no money, and I raised them just fine. And I was like, who are you? Like, who is this nightmare of a person that would interrupt that conversation and make that about them? And it was such a discordant comment. It lacked all empathy, all awareness. It just shut down the group instantly. And the group ended, and I was going, what is wrong with that woman? And I talked to the psychologist, and he goes, that woman is a narcissist. That's what it looks like. Not being selfish, not being mean, not intentionally. This is a woman that has no awareness that other people exist in the universe. And that's the crux of what narcissism is. It is an absolute denial that there are other people around you that matter. It's not mean, it's not selfish, it's a complete lack of connection. So I give you that story to think about Kody with that lens, because oftentimes we see people that are jerks and think, you must be a narcissist. And there's a massive difference. So putting my story aside, let's go through the diagnostic criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. So first, for any personality disorder to be diagnosed, you have to have a pervasive pattern. This means it happens in multiple areas of somebody's life. So if someone's just mean to their spouse, but they're nice at work or nice at school or nice elsewhere, it's not diagnosable as a personality disorder. And in Kody's case, he treats some of his kids poorly, he treats some of his wives poorly, but not all of them. And we don't have any evidence, at least that I'm aware of, that he shows up that way, right, in other areas of his life, at work or with friends that he meets or anybody else in his sort of sphere of influence. That's the first thing. I don't think he meets the criteria. Next, narcissists use others as objects to be reference points to understand themselves. Like, they don't have the sense of self to say, I'm happy or I'm sad or I'm good or I'm bad at X, Y, and Z. Everything is about how do I compare to other people. So they're constantly focused on this. How am I doing in relationship to somebody else? And as a consequence, oftentimes narcissists inflate how they see themselves. I'm better than everybody at this, or I'm worse than everybody at this. But it's always, they just can't be. It has to be against or in opposition to something else. And what follows from that is this constant need to focus and do things that other people like. You're focusing on things that other people think are cool so that you then can elevate yourself. And in Kody's case, I don't have any evidence that he meets that diagnostic criteria. Also, like the story I shared, narcissists are totally unable to connect with people. They can't truly create intimate relationships with anybody. They don't have a strong enough sense of self to really create that bond. And here, Kody clearly doesn't meet that diagnostic criteria. He has a very positive, seemingly positive relationship with Robin. He's had historically good relationships with all 4 of his wives at some point. Janelle says that he's her best friend, right? He can be a jerk, but he does have the capacity to have very close, intimate relationships with his wives and some of his kids. No question. Does not meet the criteria. Now, I will admit he does meet some of the criteria, and those are coming up next. What we describe as grandiosity, this belief that you are more important than anybody else, that everything revolves around you. This is like the stereotypical, what does a narcissist think, right? There are overt and covert ways of showing this, but the idea that you are more important. And I do think if you watch the way that Kody interfaces with his family, he shows this one. And that's the reason why so many people online think he's a narcissist, because this is the sort of the frustrating, grating style that he has, which is it's all about me. And that comes to the last diagnostic criteria, which is attention seeking. And certainly a guy that has 4 wives, starts a television show all about him and his family, definitely meets the criteria of attention seeking. But if you only meet 2 of the 5 criteria, you're not a narcissist, not diagnosable. He's a nightmare to live with. I can't say enough negative things about him, but he's not a narcissist. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, please hit the like button, subscribe, all those things. I'll link a cool video here, which the YouTube algorithm says that you're gonna like. Or you can check out my new channel over here, which is about psychology in general. Different format than this, but I think you'll find it interesting. Check it out. All right, thanks for watching.